Today we will be studying a new poetry, that is How to Tell Wild Animals, and it is being composed by Caroline Wells. First of all, I would be giving you a quick sneak peek, points to be covered, the points which I am going to cover during this entire slide, throughout the slide. So first of all, I would be talking about the poet because it's very essential for any person to know about the poet before reading their piece of writings or before reading or enjoying their piece of compositions, or rather we can say the poetry. Then I would be giving you an introduction to the poetry followed with a detailed explanation of the same and the theme of the poetry. Okay. So first of all, we would be talking about the poet. The poet is, what is the name of the poet? Caroline Wells. Okay. So she was an American writer and a poet as well, and she has been a very, very famous writer and a poet. When she was in her childhood, she lost her hearing senses, and due to losing that hearing sense, due to the scarlet fever, she faced a lot of problem, but despite of that hearing problem, she continued her graduation, she continued her studies, and she emerged out as a very famous American writer as well as a poet. Also, the particular genre for which she had been famous for, or she is famous for today also, is children's stories. She has poured her soul into the children's stories and mystery novels and humorous verse. So she is very famous for her humorous verse. Okay. How to Tell Wild Animals is also a humorous verse by Wells. So the poetry which we are going to study is a humorous verse. So the question first of all here arises that what is humor? Have you ever come across with this term humor? I hope you must have come across with this term humor. The only thing is you just need to understand it as per the literary connotations. Okay. So if we talk about the word humor, humor is basically a word, or rather we can say humor evokes laughter. If you are reading something humorous, it means it has wit. It means that what is wit? A logical arrangement of sentences in such a way that it evokes laughter. Okay, so if we talk about the humor in the literal sense, what does it mean? It means that how it evokes laughter. The arrangement of words. The words have been arranged in such a manner that it evokes laughter whenever any reader reads that. Okay. So, and if we talk in the literary sense, we can say that humor is a literary device. Okay. In which a poet tries to make the writing witty by provoking laughter. What is witty? Something which intrigues a person. And what does intrigues mean? It means that the arrangement of words which amazed the people or the person, and a person would think that wow, how intelligent it is, but at the same time it is provoking laughter as well, it invokes laughter as well. Okay, so what happens, usually the poet uses this particular literary device in order to make their inner poetry, or rather we can say their stories or their novels, very, very interesting, so that the readers would laugh as well. And in this process of creating a humorous verse, a humorous poetry, what happens? And exaggeration is being done by the poet. What is exaggeration? That you are saying something with high relevance and which is not matching with which does not match with that kind of relevance. What does it mean now? Exaggeration means that you are exaggerating something. Exaggerating means बड़ा चढ़ाकर कुछ बोलना. In a very simple Hindi sense, you can say that you were saying something of high relevance, or you can say it means that you are overemphasizing something. Okay, you are representing something which is worse, but with a better in a better way, in a better sense. Okay, so that is called exaggeration. As I've told you, bada chadhakar bolna, right? So basically, a poet uses exaggeration and so many other things like irony and satire as well to make their poetry what? Quite humorous, or to make the situation or the language humorous. So in this particular poetry, Wells has used the humorous images in the poetry in such a way that it evokes laughter. So the language is humorous over here. This poetry is important because of its language, and this poetry is important just because of how the poet has described the animals. Okay, the way is important, the language is important, and this makes this poetry of par excellence. Now, introduction to the poetry. So what am I going to tell you? First of all, understand that what is poetry. Poetry is full of imaginations, full of creativity, and it is a way to express your emotions in a very grandiloquent manner, in a very imaginative manner, in a very creative manner. It gives you a leisure. It makes you fully charged with emotions. Okay, it evokes emotions within you. So poetry is a piece of writing which evokes emotions within you. It charges you emotionally. All right, so that is why poetry is very important. Okay, it is very beautiful. When we talk about the poetry, the basic difference between the poetry and a story is the story is being narrated and it cannot be sung, whereas a poetry has lyrics, it has rhythm, and due to those lyrics and rhythms, one can sing the poetry. You must all have remembered with the poetry, Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are, up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky, right? So you must have observed that I could sing it. How I could sing it just because of those rhythms, just because of those rhymes, just because of that rhyming scheme present in the poetry. Okay, that makes the poetry liable to be sung by a person. On the other hand, if we talk about a story, we cannot sing it because it is in a very colloquial language, right? The day-to-day conversation it means. So the poetry has two meanings. The first one is the literal meaning and the second one is the symbolic meaning. Literal meaning is a very direct and a simple meaning which a reader can grasp and understand just by reading the words of the poetry. Okay? The direct meaning it means. When it comes to the symbolic meaning, it means that the meaning which is underneath those verses or those lines of the poetry. What does it mean now? Symbolic meaning means the indirect meaning of the poetry, the hidden meaning, the meaning which has been hidden uh, underneath underneath, rather, we can say, underneath the words. What does underneath means? Underneath means beyond the words. What is the meaning of the poetry beyond the literal meaning of those words? So the indirect meaning, the meaning which is hidden under those words. Okay. So there are two meanings, okay? The first one is the literal meaning and the symbolic meaning. In this particular poetry, How to Tell Wild Animals, the symbolic meaning lies in its language, the way poet has been describing the animals, okay? So the poem is written in a humorous way, as I've told you that it evokes laughter, okay? The words in the poetry has been arranged in such a way that evokes laughter to a reader. Okay, so it gives a description of physical characteristics and behavioral pattern of certain wild animals. So as the title itself says, How to Tell Wild Animals. Okay, so the title itself suggests that the poetry is about how a, a poet is describing or delineating the physical characteristics or the behavioral patterns of the animals. Okay, so the poetry is all about that, but we cannot underrate or undermine this poetry because it is very, very interesting to see that how the poet is arranging the words in such a way that she is describing the animals in a very funny, in a very humorous way, and she managed to do it from the beginning till the end. There is not a single stanza in the poetry which the readers feel that is dull and dry. She is not giving any dull and dry description of the animals. She is not just introducing the animals in a very dull and dry manner. She is rather using her humor, she is rather using her wit. And by infusing the humor into her language, she is making her poetry of par excellence. Okay, so this particular poetry suggests that how to identify wild animals. So she is giving the information, the basic information about some of the wild animals in the forest, the ways suggested, the ways which have been suggested by the poet are too dangerous to adopt but funny to hear. Okay, and how is she doing that? We would be able to understand it the moment we read the story. So this is very important, that how she is able to suggest that how the animals are very dangerous. Okay, and the ways she has been suggesting are too dangerous to adopt but funny to hear. That when a person hears whatever suggestions are given by the poet are funny to hear, but the moment people would um adopt those measures or those suggestions, then it would be very, very dangerous to implement it into reality. Okay, so the poet has used the language in a way that it creates humor. All right, so it creates humor. The language is important. Again and again, I am emphasizing on the fact that the language in this particular poetry is very, very important, and that makes this particular poetry important. So I have picked up the snippets of the poetry which is there in your book, and I'm going to read it, and you need to listen it very carefully. Okay? How to Tell Wild Animals. This humorous poem suggests some dangerous ways to identify or tell wild animals. Read it aloud, keeping to a strong and regular rhythm. Okay, so the first thing which you got to know about this particular poetry is through these lines which are there above the page, at the top of the page rather, that the poem is humorous. And I've told you that what does humorous poetry mean. Humorous poetry means which laughter. It means that the poet has arranged the words and sentences in such a way that it evokes laughter to the readers, or to a reader. Okay, so it is a humorous poetry, and it is suggesting some dangerous ways, because of course with humor so many things would be infused, so many other emotions would also infused within the poetry to make it humorous, the satire, the irony, that something which is not there but it has been included, right? So exaggeration, overemphasizing on the things would also be there in the poetry. Okay, and some of the suggestions which if one adopt in reality would be very dangerous, okay, but to listen them, it evokes laughter. So in this way she has incorporated this particular attribute of suggesting the dangerous ways to identify or tell the wild animals. So we just need to keep it simple, and I'm going to read it now. And also over here written that we need to read it in a regular rhythm. It means that this particular poetry is having a rhythm, because without rhythm, without lyrics, a poetry cannot be a poetry. We cannot sing it, right? So starting on, if ever you should go by chance to jungles in the east, and if there should to you advance a large and tawny beast, if he roars at you as you are dying, you will know it is the Asian lion. Or if sometime when roaming round a noble wild beast greets you with black stripes on a yellow ground, just notice if he eats you. This simple rule may help you learn the Bengal tiger to discern. If strolling forth a beast to view, whose hide with spots is peppered, as soon as he has leapt on you, you'll know it is the leopard. It will do no good to roar with pain, he'll only leap and leap again. If when you were walking round your yard, you meet a creature there who hugs you very, very hard, be sure it is a bear. If you have any doubts, I guess he'll give you just one more caress. Though to distinguish beasts of prey, a novice might nonplus, the crocodile you always may tell from hyenas. Hyenas come with merry smiles, but if they weep, they are crocodiles. The true chameleon is small, a lizard sort of thing. He hasn't any ears at all and not a single wing. If there is nothing on the tree, it is the chameleon you see. Caroline Wells. So this is a very, very simple poetry. And first of all, I am going to tell you its literal meaning, that is the direct meaning, which we'll be able to understand just by reading it. Okay, so I am reading the first stanza again and would be talking about its literal meaning. If ever you should go by chance to jungles in the east. So the first two lines suggests that if by chance you get the opportunity to go any of the jungles in the east, and if there should to you at once a large and tawny beast, and if in case a large and tawny beast is advancing towards you, what is large? Which is big in size, of course. And what is tawny beast? Tawny beast means which is yellowish brown in color. Okay, so, of course, you must have seen a lion, and if you have seen a lion somewhere, not in reality but in pictures, you must be knowing this, that it is yellowish brown in color. So, tawny beast. So, what the poet is saying, that if by chance you get the opportunity to go any of the jungles in the east, and there you are seeing a large and a tawny beast advancing towards you. Large means big in size. Tawny beast. Tawny beast means yellowish brown in color. If he roars at you as you are dying, and when he would be advancing towards you, that large and tawny beast, yellowish brown color beast, would be advancing towards you. He would be roaring after having a glimpse of you, and with that roar you would be dying within, because you would be knowing that he would eat you. So this particular line, if he roars at you as you are dying, so in reality, when he roars, that feeling of petrifying feeling, that terrifying feeling, that frightening feeling would be there within you, and you would be knowing that you are going to die. Okay, you will know it is the Asian lion, and that moment you will be able to know that he would be it would be a Asian lion. So if you see, it's very simple stanza, that how it is saying that if you go to any of the jungles in the east and ever you uh, watch or see a young tawny beast, a large tawny beast advancing towards you, and he would be roaring, and with that roar you will be petrified and you will be frightened and you'll feel that you are going to die, then understand that it is the Asian lion. So this is the introduction which the poet is giving to you of the Asian lion. Okay, so, if you see its language, you can see that the description is not dull, the description is not dry. It is very interesting, it is very funny, and it is somewhat different. Not the any of the introductions which you could even find in at Google or Wikipedia, right? So it's a very different thing. Just see how the poet has arranged the words together. Like you can see from here, and if there should to you advance a large and tawny beast, if he roars at you as you are dying, you'll know it is the Asian lion. So the essence of this particular stanza lies in the fifth line, that if he roars at you, you are dying, you'll know that it is the Asian lion. That the moment the Asian lion would be roaring at you, or having a glimpse of after having a glimpse of you, or after looking you, he would be it the Asian lion would be roaring, right? It would create the sound as if he would pounce upon you and would eat it. And seeing if you will see the Asian lion roaring at you, the next moment you will be feeling petrified and you will be very frightened, and would be thinking that he would soon pounce upon you and would eat you. And at that particular moment, understand that it is Asian lion. So what the poet is telling over here, the poet is telling over here about the physical characteristics. And which line is telling us about the physical characteristics? The line you can see here, a large and tawny beast. So the physical characteristic which we got to know over here is that it's large in size, and the second physical characteristic which we got to know over here is that it is a tawny beast. Tawny means yellowish brown in color. And the second behavioral pattern which we got to know over here is, if he roars at you, you are dying. So it has a behavioral pattern of roaring when after having a glimpse of any person. Okay, as you know that it's a carnivorous, right? So I would be telling you now its which meaning, the symbolic meaning. Stanza 1. If ever you go by chance to jungles in the east, if there you to advance a large and tawny beast, if he roars at you as you are dying, you will know that it is a Asian lion. You can see that how large Asian lion is. Okay, so you can see its physical characteristic, that it's large in size, and the second physical characteristic, you can see that how it is yellowish brown in color. You must have observed the roaring of the lion, the Asiatic lion, right? So you can see that if you have heard the voice very indirectly, you will be able to understand that how petrifying and terrifying voice the lion has. So, getting on to its symbolic meaning, the poet starts the poetry with the introduction of the physical characteristics of an Asian lion. Okay, and the poet is informing the readers that how an Asiatic lion can be identified. The poet is telling us, right? She is telling us that if you will see a tawny beast and a large and tawny beast advancing towards you, and if you will see that he roars at you and you are dying, then you can understand that it is a Asian lion, right? So she is telling us the physical characteristics, and she's informing about the behavioral pattern of the Asiatic lion as well. And this is how the readers get to know that how we can identify an Asian lion if we ever would ever come across with it in any of the forests. She states that if a person come across a huge and dull yellowish brown colored beast in the forest of eastern countries with a wild loud roar and violently frightens a person to death, then it would be an Asiatic lion. As I've told you before as well, that if a person would get the chance to go to any of the eastern eastern countries forest, and there they get a glimpse of a tawny beast with a wild, loud roar. And if that roar would violently frightens and petrifies a person to death, that even after listening the sound, that noise of the Asiatic lion, the person would be feel like dying, that or rather they'll think that they are going to be die soon, because of course if a lion would have a glimpse of a person, he would pounce upon him and would kill him. So this is the introduction which the poet is giving to the readers. The poet states that an Asiatic lion can be identified with its vast body, with the dull brown skin, and its deadly terrified roar. So the identifying physical characteristics and behavioral patterns have been mentioned here. So if we talk about the rhyming scheme of the poetry, we can see that the rhyming scheme of the poetry is A B A B C C. And how is it so? Let me tell you. So the rhyming scheme, if I'll read the stanza again, if you remember the stanza starts like, if ever you should go by chance to jungles in the east, and if there should to you advance a large and tawny beast, if he roars at you as you are dying, you will know it is the Asian lion. So how would we identify the rhyming scheme here? The rhyming scheme can be identified in such a way that, first of all, a reader needs to see at the end words of the lines. So you need to see the ending words of each line, like chance, east, advance, beast, dying, lion. So chance and east, they are not rhyming to each other. Chance and advance, they both are rhyming each other. CE and CE are coming, right? So chance and advance. So the first line would be start with the rhyming scheme A. Then, since the first and the second line, they both are not rhyming with each other, since the last words are not rhyming with each other, then the B alphabet would be given to the second line. And if there should you to advance, of course chance and advance, they both are rhyming to each other, then A B A again. Okay, then beast and east, they both are rhyming to each other, then B would be given to the fourth line. Dying and lion, N and N, they are rhyming to each other, then C and C. So that is why the rhyming scheme of this particular stanza would be A B A B C C. And the rhyming scheme of this particular poetry is the same. When I would be talking to you about the next stanza, the second stanza, then I would be telling you that how the rhyming scheme is similar. The second is enjambment. Enjambment, if we talk about enjambment means when the line continues without what? Without what? without any of the punctuation marks. And if you see your book, you can see that the second line, the first line continues, then the second line comes, then the third line, then the fourth line, right? So the third line is not having any of what? The punctuation marks. And the second line is having a punctuation mark. The first line is also not having any punctuation mark. So after the second line, there is only in the fourth line that a punctuation marks use, right? So, and if there should to you advance a large and towny beast, okay, so here is enjambment. There should to you advance a large and towny beast. Here is enjambment, okay. The third, or rather I can say the second literary device is assonance. You should go, should to you roars. Okay. So assonance. First of all, understand that what is assonance. Assonance is when you use the vowel sound. When the vowel sound is being used repeatedly. Okay, use of vowel sound. You should go, should to you roars. Okay, so assonance is there. And the last one is allusion. Allusion means when you are referring to one of the famous things or places or species. So here in the first stanza, the poet is referring towards the Asiatic lion. Okay, so the reference of a Asiatic lion is being given, so that is why allusion is being used. So what all these we are talking about, these are the literary devices, and why these literary devices are being used in the poetry? In order to beautify the poetry, like a girl beautifies its beauty through ornaments. Similarly, a poetry's beauty can be, you can say, modified with the usage of the literary devices. Okay, so here ends the first stanza. Now the second stanza. First of all, I will be telling you its rhyming scheme, because and all the literary devices being used, because in this first stanza maybe it would be very difficult for you to understand because I haven't told you before, right? So we'll be reading it. Or if sometime when roaring round a noble wild beast greets you with black stripes and a yellow ground, just notice if he eats you. This simple rule may help you learn the Bengal tiger to discern. Okay. So first of all, I would be telling you its literal meaning. So if sometime when roaming around a noble wild beast greets you, so the poet continues by saying that if you roams in the guard in that forest, and if you come across with a noble wild beast, or suddenly a noble wild beast comes in front of you and it greets you, there with a black strips, and that particular beast would be having a black strips or black stripes on its body, and would be on the yellow ground. Just notice that if he would eat you or not. And this particular simple rule would help you to understand that that particular beast would be a Bengal tiger. So just understand it, how interesting and how humorous it is to read, that how she is describing this particular beast. She could have also described it by saying that Bengal tiger is having a large body and is having a black stripes uh, on its body, and it roars and it eats a person. But she doesn't describe the Bengal tiger like this. How she is describing? She's describing it with funny and humorous and ironic implications in lines and words. So I'm reading it again. Or if sometime when roaming round, that if a person roams around the forest and a noble wild greets you, a noble wild beast greets you, of course, no Bengal tiger is going to greet you. It's just a way of saying, it's just a way of create humor or evokes humor within the poetry. So a noble wild beast, and it's of course it's not noble. It's not noble. Noble is someone who do something for a person selflessly. And of course, Bengal tiger is very dangerous in nature. It eats a person after having a glimpse of it. The moment the Bengal tiger sees a human being, of course, he would pounce upon that person and he would eat it directly. So he's not noble. So of course, it is satiric in nature again. So satire is being used that he is not noble, or rather you can say ironic in nature, that he is not noble, but again noble is being used. So irony is when you are saying something and you do not mean it, you are meaning it the opposite. So noble over here, the usage of noble over here for the Bengal tiger is quite ironic. Okay, so a noble wild beast greets you with black stripes and a yellow ground. Just notice if he eats you. Of course, you won't be standing over here noticing that if he would come and eat you, right? It's again just a way to evoke laughter and fun in the poetry. This simple rule may help you learn, and this is one of the most simple rules that you can learn, that this is a Bengal tiger to discern. See the Bengal tiger to discern. If you see this particular line, the Bengal tiger to discern, understand over here the poet is taking the poetic license over here. And what is poetic license? Poetic license mean that when the poet takes the liberty with language, that they play with the words, or rather they make the grammatical mistakes, or they are not using the syntax of the language properly just to maintain the rhythm and the lyrics of the lyrical balance of the poetry, right? So the Bengal tiger to discern. So if you see that the syntax of the English language is subject plus verb plus object, right? S plus V plus O. But over here, verb is at the end, Bengal tiger is before. So over here, subject plus object plus verb is the syntax which is being used by the poet. So over here, she has taken what? She has taken the poetic license just to maintain the lyrical balance, just to maintain that lyrics, that rhythm within the poetry. Okay. So you can see that how the introduction which I have given to you of this particular poetry, that how she is giving some dangerous suggestions which are funny to hear and difficult to, or rather we can say dangerous to adopt. So over here she's saying just notice if he eats you. So it seems quite funny to listen, but if we'll go in one of the jungles and we would stand over here and want to notice that whether that Bengal tiger would eat us or not, it would be very dangerous, right? So it is dangerous. The suggestions which the poet is giving is quite dangerous, but it is quite funny to listen. And here maintains and comes the humor of whom? Of the poet. All right. And see again the rhyming scheme. Round, ground, you and you learn and discern. So I have told you the rhyming scheme of the poetry before as well. Right. So the rhyming scheme of the poetry is A B A B C C. So see, A, round and ground. They both are rhyming with each other. So A to the first line, a to the third line. You and you, they both are rhyming to each other, right? You and you. So B and B. So A, B, learn and discern. They both are rhyming to each other. So C and C. So A, B, C, C. This is the rhyming scheme of the poem. So here starts with the literal meaning. No, I have told you the literal meaning of the poetry. Now I would be talking about the symbolic meaning. So, in the second stanza, with the use of the language in a humorous way, the poet talks about how one can identify the Bengal tiger. When I was telling you about the literal meaning of the poetry, I've told you that how the poet is humorously using the language and making the readers to identify the Bengal tiger. She is giving us the dangerous suggestions to adopt so that we can identify the Bengal tiger, which is, of course, humorous in nature. Her only way need or want is just to make the readers realize about the behavioral and the physical characteristics of the animals. She extends herself by saying it is as a noble, majestic animal. So she is considering him as a noble, majestic animal. He is majestic. He is large in size. He's grandiloquent in size. He's chivalric in nature. But it's of course not noble, right? So it's very ironic. The usage of the word noble over here for the Bengal tiger is very ironic. It has different yellow skin with white stripes on it, black stripes as well. Moreover, the poet tells that if it tries to eat you up, then it will help you to discern, to understand. Discern means to understand that it is a Bengal tiger. So, of course, it's telling that if it comes to you and it will eat you up, and if you notice that if it eats you up, then understand that it's a Bengal tiger. Then understand. Discern means understand. It is very interesting to note that the poet, by using wit, by using logic, by using humor, tells the readers that a person has to be eaten up by the beast only to know if it is a Bengal tiger or not. So it's very humorous and witty to know that how the poet is saying that if you want to know who is a Bengal tiger, for that purpose you need to be eaten up by it. Only then you will understand that what is a Bengal tiger. It's like अगर बंगाल टाइगर को जानना है तो फिर उसको तुम्हें उसके पास जाकर जाना पड़ेगा वो जब तुम्हें खा जाएगा तब तुम्हें पता चलेगा that it's a Bengal tiger. So it's like that, okay? So the details are blended and integrated well with humor. All right. So alliteration has also been used over here. Alliteration is a very, very simple literary speech which I haven't told you before because I thought that it would be very easy for you to understand it. So alliteration comes when what? When the repetition of the alphabet occurs. Okay. So the repetition of whenever the repetition of the alphabet occurs, then it would be an alliteration, which is being considered as anupras in Hindi. Okay. Roaming round, R and R, both are what? Repeating. The alphabet R is being repeated over here. That is why it's what? It is alliteration. Okay. Now inversion. When we change in a format of a sentence, then it is inversion. The Bengal tiger to discern. I've told you that the syntax is subject plus verbs form plus object. But over here she has used subject, object, and verb. So that is why the Bengal tiger to discern would be an inversion in the poetic license as well. Assonance. I've told you before as well, when the sound, the vowel sound A-E-I-O-U repeats, then comes the assonance. Or if sometime roaming round, O, the sound of O is being repeated here. Again, allusion is there in each and every stanza over here because the reference of the animals is being given over here in each stanza, and that is why this particular literary device allusion is being used here. All right. Now, third, if strolling forth a beast you view, whose hide with spots is peppered, as soon as he has leapt on you, you'll know it is the leopard. It will do no good to roar with pain, he'll only leap and leap again. So, the stanza third starts like if strolling forth. Strolling means when a person walks casually, that without any purpose. If you are walking, that is known as strolling. Okay, so if you stroll forth, forth means forward. So if you stroll forth, if you casually walk forward, and if you get a view of a beast whose hide with spots is peppered, which means that whose body is peppered, is filled with spots. Okay, peppered means over here is spots. Okay, so its body is peppered, is fully peppered, is it means that is full of spots, black spots. And as soon as he leapt on you, now what does leapt means? Jump towards, that pounce. And if he, after having a look of you, and if he pounds upon you, leapt means pounds, you will know it is the leopard. Then at that particular moment, you will be able to know that it's a leopard. It will do no good to roar with pain. And what does it mean? It means that it will do nothing but roar, and with that roar, you would be having pain, because when he would be roaring, he would be eating you up very, very brutally. Okay? And he'll only lap and lap again, and he would only be eating and eating you. Okay? So, this is the literal meaning of this particular stanza, that if you roam forward very casually across the forest, and if you will have a view of the beast which is having its body peppered, or it's having the black spots all over his body, and after having a view or glimpse of you, it would be pouncing upon you, it would pounce upon you, and it will do no good to you, it will only roar, it will give you pain by eating you up, and it will only lap and lap again. It means that it will be eating and eating you after having pounced upon you. So this is the literal meaning. Over here we get to know about the physical characteristics of the leopard, that how it is having black spots all over its body. It's of course large in size, and it roars, of course, and the moment it sees a person, it pounces upon that person, and it will give pain to the person, because the moment it pounces upon the person, it would not leave the person, it starts eating it and giving it immense pain and eat it brutally. Okay, so let's start with its what the symbolic meaning. In this stanza, the poet endowed the readers. Endowed means provide the readers with an accurate description of the distinctive body of a leopard bearing dark spots on its light colored body. So over here we get to know about the physical characteristic of whom? Of a leopard. So a leopard is having a body which is light colored, okay? But it would be having dark spots, dark black spots all over its body, and its body is quite distinctive, it's quite different. Okay, it is being described by the poet in the stanza. The poet says that a leopard can easily be identified with its peppered body. So the thing or the physical characteristic which makes the leopard different is its peppered body, its spotted body, which means a spotted skin, and its habit of lapping on the person it come across. Okay, so the moment, so the different characteristics which it is having is that it is having black spots on it, and this animal is very fast, that it will leap on you at once, which means that it will jump on you, and the moment it will jump on you, it will start leaping, it means start eating you. Okay, by using the poetic license over here, the poet takes the liberty with language, and it is corroborated. Corroborated means it is evident by the alterations in the spelling of leap and leapt. By using leap and leapt, basically the spelling of leap is L-E-A-P, but over here the poet has used leap, L-E-P, leap, and for leapt, L-E-A-P-T, leapt, the poet has used L-E-P-T, leapt. Okay, so this is the poetic license which the poet has taken. So alterations in the spelling just to make what? Just to maintain the lyrics or the rhythms of the poetry. Before, when the syntax of the sentence was being inverted, then it was inversion over there. As I told you, the Bengal tiger to discern, over there it was inversion, and over here the alterations in the spelling is leap and left. So there is also a poetic device, but if you need to write the poetic device, you need to just mention over here. Basically it's present here only because it's the alterations in the spelling. Over there it's all about the syntax, though the poet is using the poetic device, the poetic license there as well. Okay, So the poet continues by saying about once a leopard would pounce on its victim, it would never spare its victim and would continue attacking a person despite a person roars in pain. So it is giving us, the poet is giving us the physical characteristic of a leopard, that when a leopard would pounce, would jump on its victim, it would never spare it. It would never leave its victim and would continue attacking upon him or her despite that person would be shouting and screaming and shrieking in pain. So it's very brutal. Okay. So alliteration, again there is alliteration, the use of consonant sound H in the beginning of the two words he has. So he has is what is H and H, both are repeating. That is why alliteration is being used here. What is being used? So the line was as soon as he has leapt on you, then H and H, they both are repeating. Okay. So when two words which are together and their first alphabets are repeating, then that is alliteration. Poetic license, I've told you that a liberty to the poet to change the spellings in order to create rhyme or rhythm in a poem. The usage of leapt instead of leapt and lep as well. Repetition is being also used, lep and lep again. So when the entire word is repeating, then it is repetition. When a single word, same word, same. When the word is repeating, then it is a repetition. When a single alphabet is repeating together, then it is alliteration. When the sound, the vowel sound is repeating, then it is assonance. When the consonant sound is repeating, that is consonant. So don't be confused. Okay. Now back on to our next stanza, and that is stanza number 4. So, if when you're walking around your yard you meet a creature there who hugs you very, very hard, be sure it is a bear. If you have any doubts, I guess he'll give you just one more caress. So, over here, she is giving a characteristic of a bear. Okay, so it states like, if when you're walking around your yard, that if you are someday walking around your yard, okay, do you know that what is the meaning of yard? Yard is a garden. Okay, so if you ever walk around or strolls in your yard, in your garden, and if you meet any of the creatures there, any of the creature who hugs you very, very hard, then you will get to know that that is a bear. And still, if you would be having any doubt, then it would give you just one more caress. And do you know that what is the meaning of caress? Caress mean a gentle and a loving touch. Okay. Again, this word is ironically used over here because again, bear is not an affectionate animal. It is also dangerous like other animals which the poet has described so far. It's just quite humorous, quite ironic, and quite satiric on the part of the poet to say that the bear would hug or embrace the person whom he would or it would be meeting with. Okay, so it is quite dangerous on the part of the poet saying that it would hug you. It would not embrace the person affectionately. Rather, the poet over here means that the moment the bear would be having a glimpse of whom, of the animal, of any of the human beings, then it would straight away hugs you. It means tightly hold you with its body and would, of course, you can say squeeze you until you'll be in pain and will be shrieking, and it is very dangerous animal again. So the poet over here is saying that if you ever would be walking and strolling across your gardens, and if you will meet any creature over there who would hug you very, very hard, so very, very hard over here is very, very painfully, be sure that it would be a beer. And if you will be having still doubts, and if you will be still in doubt, then it will give you just one more caress, just one more gentle touch. So that touch would not be gentle at all. That is very ironic on the part of the poet to say that its touch is very very dangerous. Okay. So the stanza delineates about the behavioral pattern of a beer, not the physical characteristics. So we are over here not getting the physical characteristics of the beer. What we get to know is the beer is yet again a dangerous animal by its nature. It's not a very affectionate or very, very loving animal. It's dangerous. Again, similarly dangerous with the same intensity or in the same intensity like other animals were dangerously described by the poet. But the way the poet has introduced this animal is quite humorous and interesting. But over here, the poet has introduced this animal in a very humorous and interesting manner. And how? She says that if ever a person strolls in his or her courtyard or in their garden, and by chance they come across a creature who hugs or embraces a person very strongly and tightly, then a person would get to an assurance that about its identity because it's famous beer hug. So the way beer embraces a person, it's very very dangerous. So the beer is famous for its famous hug, famous for his beer hug. So beer hug, what does it mean? It means that how tightly it embraces a person that it would uh, be very very frightened. The person would be very very frightened and would perhaps be died, right? The poet humorously uses the word caress for the slap or the way a bear attacks on its victim. So over here, that word caress, which I was telling you that was ironic in nature or was very ironically used by the poet, over there it doesn't mean the gentle touch. It means the way a bear attacks on its victim. Both the hug and the caress of the bear is dangerous for the victim. So the way the bear holds its victim and attacks on its victim, give that touch to the victim is dangerous for the person. Okay. So again, enjambment, I've told you that when the continuation of the sentence is there without any punctuation to the next line, then it is what it is, a enjambment. Okay. So if you were walking round your yard, you meet a creature there. So till, from if to there was no single punctuation mark being used between, so that is why enjambment is there. Assonance, I've told you that when the sound is repeated, when the sound of a vowel is being repeated, then it is assonance. Meet a creature there. So meet creature there. So the sound of E is being repeated. Alliteration, the use of B, H, and V. And where it is, you can see that the use of B. Be sure it is a beer in the single line. B is being used again. Okay. H. H is also being used. Who hugs you very very hard? H, and H is again being used twice. V. V is also being used very very. Okay, so who hugs you very very. So V is being used together. Okay. Now stanza number 5. Though to distinguish beasts of prey, or novice might none plus, the crocodile you always may tell from the hyenas thus. Hyenas come with merry smiles, but if they weep, they are crocodiles. So again, prey may nonplus does smiles crocodiles. So again, the same rhyming scheme, A B C C. Okay. Now, talking about its literal meaning, though to distinguish beasts of prey. So, if a person needs to distinguish between the two beasts of prey means the beasts who are known for preying, for victimizing the uh, persons or the animal, or you can say the human beings. A novice might nonplus. So, do you know that what is the meaning of novice? Novice means a person who is someone new to any of the jobs, or they don't know much about anything, right? So that person is novice. Nonplus means be confused. A novice might nonplus. So a person who doesn't know about the distinguishing characteristics between the hyena and the crocodile, they might be confused to distinguish between these beasts of prey. Okay, so that is why the poet is describing both these two victims, rather we can say the beasts of prey together. So what is she doing? She basically is contrasting the two beasts together. The one is crocodile and the second one is hyena. Okay, so a novice might nonplus means a person who doesn't know much about animals. That person can be confused, and she is describing the distinguishing features so that a person would not be confused between them. The crocodile you always may tell from the hyena thus. Hyenas come with merry smiles, but if they weep, they are crocodiles. So the distinguishing features which is being told by the poet is that the hyena smiles and a crocodile weeps. Over here it is also ironic. That is, if we talk about this hyena, hyena never gives a merry smile. The smile on the face of hyena is very dangerous. Okay, so whenever it sees its victim, it shows a very cunning and a very dangerous smile. Okay, and if we talk about a crocodile, crocodile whenever sees its victim, it gives a very different impression upon its victim. So it roars like it's weeping. Okay, so whenever a hyena sees its prey, its victim, then it gives a very clever and a cunning and a very dangerous smile. And a crocodile weeps, not weeps necessarily. If you have ever heard about this particular phrase, the crocodile tears, the tears which are not original, not genuine. Okay, so it is a phrase being used for the people who are just weeping just for the sense of weeping. What does it mean again? It means that when a crocodile weeps, it is not original, it is not genuine, it is just doing in pretense, just for the sake of showing. Okay. So over here, crocodile is not necessarily weeping, it's just one of its ways of trapping its victim, and one of its ways of showing its behavioral pattern, that how it behaves whenever he or it gets the glimpse or sight of its victim. Okay, making you understand it further as well. Maybe you must have not understood it. This particular stanza is extended with the contrast between the behavioral pattern of the hyena to that of a crocodile. So it must be clear in your head that this particular stanza is creating a contrast, difference between hyena and a crocodile. These two animals are dangerous again. They both prey, beasts of prey. Beasts of prey, I have told you before as well. The beasts who are very dangerous and make so many victims. Beasts of prey also mean that the animals which are carnivorous in nature, or those that eat other animals as well. Okay, so she says that even a neophyte means a person who doesn't know much, a person who is a novice, a person who doesn't know about uh, any of the jobs or uh, whatever they are doing, they don't know much about it. Or over here in this particular poetry, neophyte or novice means a person who doesn't know about the animals well. So she says that even a neophyte, a person who doesn't know about the animals well, and has no knowledge about the beasts, can identify between these two distinct habits. Hyena, while devouring its prey or victim, seems to be smiling. So whenever a hyena devours or eats its victim or its prey, it seems to be smiling. It seems to give a cunning smile as if it's enjoying eating its victim, or it's uh, having a pleasure eating its victim. Okay, so that clever and cunning smile is on its face. It's not just a loving smile. Okay, on the contrary, crocodile, a crocodile sheds tears effusively. Okay, now what does effusively mean? Effusively means profusely. And what does profusely mean? Profusely mean in a large amount. Okay, so on the contrary, a crocodile sheds tears effusively, means in a large amount. So the smiling and weeping face will make the difference certain between the two animals. The poet's language retains the tinge of humor because the hyenas never smile happily, nor are the tears of the crocodiles genuine. So here lies the humor of the poet. It is very important. These differences are very important. The differences of both the beasts have been juxtaposed by the poet in a very humorous and interesting manner. Juxtapose means uh, putting both the differences together. Okay, so the poet's language over here, it maintains the tinge of humor. Tinge of humor means the sense of humor, because the hyenas never smile happily. I've told you before as well, the smile which a hyena gives while devouring or while eating its victim is not happy at all. It's very cunning, it's very pleasurable and gluttonous type of a smile. Gluttonous means which is used in a negative pleasurable feeling. Okay, nor are the tears of the crocodiles genuine. So whenever a crocodile eats its victim, it tears starts we shedding. Okay, so those uh, tears are not genuine. It is eating somebody and it's weeping. It doesn't mean that it's weeping genuinely. They are uh, artificial tears. They are not genuine tears. Okay, so they are the tears of pretense, just for the sake of showing. All right, so I hope that the difference is very much clear to you. The difference is that how the hyena smiles and how a crocodile weeps. And this is the difference between the two beasts of prey. They both eat other animals, they both eat other human beings, they both prey a lot, they both victimize the human beings or other animals a lot. The only difference between them is the hyena gives a smile, a merry smile, and that smile is not merry at all. So it is very ironic and very humorous on the part of the poet. And the crocodile doesn't weep whenever it devours its victim. It's not genuine. The tears of the crocodiles are not genuine. All right. So the alliteration. I've told you that alliteration is when the alphabet is being used. Okay. When the alphabet is being used. Which alphabet? When the alphabet is repeatedly used, then it is alliteration. Okay. So novice and nonplus, right? These are the two words which are being used together, right? So that is n and n. Both these are both. Uh, I mean, this single alphabet n is being repeated twice, right? So it would be alliteration. Use of th, the and thus is also being used in the line, so that is why alliteration again. Enjambment, I've told you that when a sentence continue to the next line without the usage of the punctuation mark is over there enjambment is used. Though to distinguish might non plus the crocodile he now does. So here it is enjambment. Okay. So now let's move towards and the last stanza of the poetry. The true chameleon is small, a lizard sort of thing. He hasn't any ears at all and not a single wing. And if there is nothing on the tree, it is the chameleon on this. You see, it's not chameleon. Don't confuse it. It's pronunciation by calling it chameleon. It's chameleon. Okay. Okay, it's true chameleon. All right. So let's talk about its rhyming scheme first. Small, thing, all, wing, tree, C. Small and all, thing and wing, tree and C. So A, B, C, C. This is the rhyming scheme. Let's moving towards the literal meaning of this particular stanza. The true chameleon is small. So a chameleon, who is a chameleon in the truest of its sense, it is small in size, a lizard sort of thing. It resembles to that of a lizard, but it is not a lizard. He hasn't any ears at all. It is not having any of the ears, okay, and even not a single wing. It doesn't have any single wing. If there is nothing on the tree, it is the chameleon you see. And if you see that there is a tree in front of you, and if you notice that there is nothing on the tree, then you are wrong. It's chameleon, which you are not able to see. So this is humorous in nature again. Okay. So I would be telling you its essence and its symbolic meaning only. Just understand its literal meaning, that the true chameleon, a chameleon which is chameleon in its truest of its sense, is small in size and it resembles to that of a lizard, but it is not a lizard, and it's not having any ears, it is not having any single wing. And if you see that there is nothing on the tree, then you are mistaken. It's chameleon on the tree which you are not able to see. Okay, so we are over here got about the physical characteristics of chameleon, not about, and of course of its behavioral pattern as well, that how we are not able to see chameleon even happens. So it's very interesting for the readers to understand it. So the last stanza of the poem retains the humorous tone remarkably, as you have seen that she's saying that even if you are seeing a tree in front of you, and if you think that there is nothing on the tree, then it's chameleon you see. Okay, so the last stanza of the poem retains the humorous tone remarkably. It states the description of a creature who resembles a lizard. It has no body, it has no ears, it has no wings. Having no body doesn't mean that not having a body at all. It means that not a very big body. It's just like a lizard. Okay, it resembles to that of a lizard, but it has a ability to change its color to match with the color of its surroundings. What the poet over here is introducing to the readers is that it is having the ability to change its color as per what? As per the surroundings of the color. So it is very difficult for a person to notice or to see chameleon. Okay, so it can so well camouflage itself. Camouflage itself means it so well adjust itself, adapt itself as per its color of its surroundings, that despite sitting on the branch of a tree, it would not be visible to the human eye. A person could not trace its presence easily because it camouflage itself, it adapts itself as per the colors of the surrounding. It changes its color as per the colors of the surrounding. So it becomes very difficult for the human eye to trace chameleon easily. So a paradox has been infused well by the poet throughout this stanza, that there is something when there is nothing. So what does paradox mean? Have you ever come across this term paradox? Paradox means contradictory statement. Okay, so a particular statement which is despite it sounds with reasons, but still it is very, very difficult for a person to accept it logically. Okay, so that is a paradox, the contradictory statement. All right. Paradox, basically, if you go into its depth, you will able to understand that when a poet or when a story writer is using paradox, it simply means that they are using the contradictory statement. Okay, and if we investigate or if we search about those contradictory statements, we will find it true. Okay, so for example, she's saying that if you see a tree, okay, in front of you, and if you see that there is no one on the tree, then it's chameleon you see. So on the first part, in the first sense, she's saying that you won't be able to see chameleon, right? On the other hand, she's saying that if you don't see anyone on the tree, it's chameleon you see. So it's just a paradox which she is using. And if since I am telling you, so with a detailed analysis, you can understand that how she is using paradox over here, contradictory statement, that you cannot see her, but it's present there. So it in a way gave you a message that how there is something when you see that there is nothing. So it gives you a message that there is something when even you are unable to see anything over there or not. Again, I am extending this statement further. It means that when you are seeing that there is nothing in front of you, or if you are uh, seeing that or analyzing the fact that there is something which is not in front of you or is not visible to your eyes, then also there is something for you to see. So even if you are feeling that there is nothing to understand, there might be something to understand there as well. So this is the message which whom is giving, the poet is giving. Okay, so shall I explain you again the message which this particular stanza is giving? Maybe you must be confusing with this particular message. So the paradox and the humor in this particular stanza lies in the fact that there is something when there is nothing. So when you find that there is nothing in front of you, maybe there is something which you are unable to see. So this is the message over here, that there is something when there is nothing. Okay. So let's talk about, I've told you that the rhyming scheme is the same. Again, A, B, C, C. And the consonants is when the consonant, there are two kinds of alphabets, right? Consonant and the vowels, right? So when the consonant sound is being repeated, single and wing, okay, G, the sound of G is being repeatedly used in both these words. So over here there is consonants and alliteration again. He hasn't, he hasn't, he hasn't any ears at all. So H and H, they both are repeating again. Okay, so here ends your poetry, and in this particular poetry, the poet is giving you a very humorous description of the animal nature, which is very dangerous to implement in reality, those suggestions which is being given by the poet. So the very important, remarkable, and significant thing over here in this particular poetry is language, and the way poet is describing the physical characteristics of the animals and the behavioral patterns of the animals. So let's talk about the theme of the poetry, the idea of the poetry. The theme of the poem is, the theme of the poem is, it's a poem, not poem, all right? So it's poem. The theme of the poem is the celebration of the language with its humorous tone. So there are the tones, there are the moods of the poetry, the satirical, the ironic, the humorous, the sad, the melancholic, the happy. So the tone over here is humorous, ironic, satiric, okay? So the theme of the poem is the celebration of the language with its humorous tone. It shows that how the poet accurately states the description of some of the distinct wild animals without being dull and dry. She is not dull and dry in her description of any of the animals from the beginning till the end. It's very interesting. The humorous tone is being retained across the poetry. It's full of humor, it's full of irony, it's full of paradox. Okay. Throughout the verse, she maintained it and shows how one can identify these animals, and at the same time, she is cautioning the readers that how dangerous the wild animals can be. She is using a funny way, a humorous way to tell the human beings, okay, that it would evoke laughter. But underneath, beyond the words, she is cautioning the readers about the dangerous aspects, the dangerous physical and behavioral aspects of the animals. Okay, so the significance of this particular poem lies in the fact that how the poet is able to infuse, able to uh, integrate, able to come together and maintain the humorous tone along with the cautions about the horrifying aspects of the animals throughout the poem. So, the beauty of this particular poetry lies in the fact that how the poet infuses, how the poet uh, blends or makes both the humorous tone and the cautionary tone together and maintains its humorous tone and the cautionary tone together along with its funny language with paradox and inversions. The beauty of the poem lies in its humorous description of the physical characteristics of some of the animals in the forest. So here ends your poetry. You can ask me if you would be having any problem in the comment section. Thank you so much. I hope you will be able to understand it, and if not, you can ask me. Thank you.